Hey, Joshua, welcome to the podcast. I'm super excited to have you today. You and I got to know each other on LinkedIn, and then I got to meet you in Vermont at the Nemo Summits meeting back in November. So I'm really excited to have you on the podcast today. You're doing some amazing things, and I hope we can get that information out to all of my listeners and hopefully help you to move TAGNG along. But first, I just want to, hear from you. I want to learn about your background, what you've got you interested in the forestry, and you have already led such an amazing life. So again, welcome to the podcast, and super excited for the conversation today.
Okay, thank you very much, Mickey, for this privilege. I mean, I count it as a privilege to be featured on this podcast because in previous time I've been following this podcast. I've seen you bring a lot of great people, giants in the field of forestry, and so for me, as a grad student, I count this as a privilege to be here to like share my own story, my own view and perspective about forestry and as it implies to some other things that I'm doing.
Mhm.
So, a quick background about myself. So, like my name is Joshua. I love people to call me Joshua here in America, but my full name, which may be a bit hard for you to pronounce, is Ogunyemi Olakunle Joshua. Yeah, so but I go right now by Olakunle Joshua. So I'm from Nigeria, particularly from Ekiti State in Nigeria, and I had my first degree in forestry and wildlife management. So at the Federal University of Agriculture in Abeokuta. So let me just tell you one story about how I got myself to study forestry in my first degree. So shortly after I completed my primary education in Nigeria, all I wanted to be was just to be like my father. My father is an engineer, a mechanical engineer. So I wanted to be an engineer and I did everything possible. I studied, I just wanted to be like my father. But unfortunately, I tried like not once, not twice, but I couldn't get an admission to study engineering. So there is this common board in Nigeria that is responsible for like admitting students into the university. So they call them the JAMB. So you have to write an exam. You have to do like some kind of pre exams after that exams for you to like be suitable for that particular program. So I tried different universities, but I couldn't gain admission. So somehow, one of the years, I was about trying again using that same engineering, and my elder brother just said, "This guy is not gonna try that thing again. He's just sitting here at home, just wasting time." So somehow they filled in another institution for me, same engineering, but this time around, when the result was out, I wasn't. My grade point at that point wasn't really suitable for that program. So, but I saw forestry for me, that was the first time I will be hearing that word forestry, and wildlife management. I was so pissed, I was angry. And my parents spoke to me, they told me I shouldn't worry, that it's a good cause. And one of the trick my dad used for me that time was to tell me that Barack Obama, the then president of the United States, was a forester. I was like, wow. So if someone in that high profile, like high, you know, position could be a forester, then I'm interested in this course. Maybe if I go into it, I can get to know more about it. Meanwhile, Obama was never a forester, so it was just a trick for my dad to just get me to have an interest. So I
Mhm.
started the program, forestry. So it was for me, it was something I wasn't having interest in at the beginning because I really wanted to do engineering. But with the kind of motivation my dad gave me, I was doing that. The first year it was more of theory, some things. I always loved to like calculate, to do some things, to do some maths, to do some physics. But then when I got to the third year in the program, so we did a course forest biometrics. I think it was FOR or something 300. And I'm
Mhm.
like, wow, this is interesting. Exactly. We're doing a lot of things about statistics, about different things, measurement. We're going into the field. We're having this kind of interactions with the woods, measuring, doing some things. And I'm like, so I went back and I sat down. I'm like, I'm going to pay attention to this course. Probably I could just create a niche for myself in this area.
Mhm.
So when we did that course, when the result came out, I was the best in that course. And I'm like, oh, this is my calling. Exactly. This is where I'm meant to be in the field of forest. So I finally find it. So I was really happy with myself. I was excited. And so while others were still thinking of what to do after the bachelor's program, I already knew exactly what I was going to do. I knew I was going to go to learn more about this thing called biometrics. So immediately after my program, I did my 1 year compulsory service, and then I moved in for my master's degree at the University of Ibadan. So the master's degree I went for at that time was for forest biometrics, but at that time the university were having like a kind of reshuffling. They divided the department, like the big forestry department, into two areas, and so we were now one of the first set that were in was in that department. They call it Forest Biometrics and Information System. So forest biometrics and information system, because beyond forest biometrics, we also learned some things on decision support systems and some other things like that that we could use in tackling issues around forest management. So immediately after that, I completed a master's degree. I was able to learn a lot about forest biometrics. I was introduced to R programming, and that was just like my strong point. Like I could go anywhere. I could attend different interviews with different professors outside Nigeria, and when they ask me what is that thing that is your strength, I can use R. I can
Mhm.
use art. So, and it eventually paved the way for me. So I usually tell people when I speak, I usually tell them, I say, one of the things that God used in paving way for me was just the skill I have, the arrow programming. So when I went for my program in Italy, uh, it was the same thing that paved way for me. So under the Erasmus Mundus scholarship, it was that same thing that paved way for me. And shortly after that, when I was in Italy, when I got a job, it was still that same thing that paved way for me to get a job as a research assistant, working under a professor, supervising like some master students, doing some things on fire, fire vegetation recovery studies. And after the program in Italy, I found myself in the United States for my PhD. So it was a tough decision for me to make because I could say I was enjoying Italy at that time. I was enjoying it, and but I had to make that decision to move into the US to start my PhD. So right now, I'm actually doing my PhD in environmental science, and also like forest biometrics as one of the core uh, uh, thing I'm doing here.
Yeah. Well, that's a lot to unpack. That's a decade's worth of work that you're talking about there. I want to
Okay.
go back a little bit. So your bachelor's degree. So you were talking about how you wanted to go into engineering, and I can't tell you how many stories I've heard where people just start out wanting to
Yeah.
go into engineering and then end up becoming biometricians. It's almost
Exactly.
like it was like the second thing on the list, or it wasn't even an idea on the list, and then it
Mm,
becomes your entire being.
mm,
And I love biometrics because it's like we are mathematicians, we are statisticians, we do physics, we do everything.
mm,
And it's like you really, to be a good biometrician, you have to be a programmer, you have to have a lot of different skills.
mm.
But I'm curious because you said you didn't like forestry and wildlife, you didn't have a clue. I've never been to Africa or Nigeria, so I don't know anything about, your homeland. What is the terrain like there? Is it forested? Like, were you outside in nature? Like, how was your, growing up in life?
Oh, okay. So, for if I'm gonna tell this to you who haven't been in Nigeria before, one thing I'm just gonna say is, like the typical summer condition here is
Mhm,
just like a typical temperature back home in Nigeria. So it's forested, even
mhm,
though part of a lot of those areas that are forested right now are being deforested, and maybe probably due to some kind of anthropogenic reasons or some natural issues. But I could tell you that a larger part of the areas are forested, and the particular place where I had my bachelor's degree is in a place called Abeokuta in Ogun State.
mhm,
So it's a university where, from the entrance down to the whole interior of the whole school is really amazing. Everything about the school is green.
mhm,
Everything about the school is green. So, the forestry department have a lot of large area of land where we carry out some kind of practicals. We have like an arboretum. We have like a nursery where we raise a lot of seedlings. So, but at the initial phase when I started the bachelor's program, because I wasn't really having much interest in forestry, all I was just doing was just to go to class. So there is this normal structure we have. So at the beginning, the first year, what we do is not anything relating as much to forestry.
mhm,
So it's still just gonna be like the general thing that everything you've been doing back in your, secondary education, like the normal physics, like the normal chemistry, like the normal biology. So these are what we were doing in the first year. So while I was doing that, I was also doing in another entrance exam into another university. Maybe I could still get a chance to pursue the engineering dream, but still it wasn't successful. So then, the second year, we started doing a bit of forestry. So what we did in the second year was that is a bit relating to forestry was a course on conservation and biodiversity. So the course was kind of interesting for me because it was talking more about nature, and somehow there is this way I resonate with that particular lecture. It was interesting. And sometimes people usually say when you go to some courses, you may not be able to remember everything the way you were taught in that course, but there is gonna be something striking that you take home from that particular course. Till today, the lecturer who taught me that course is like a very good mentor to me. So there is something he taught that really made me fell in love with forestry and even with nature.
mhm,
So it was on biodiversity, and he was talking about there is a bird called passenger pigeon. So Ectopistes migratorius. So these are migratory birds that flies from one area to the other. And there was this story he told us about this particular species, that they were so much that when they're flying across a particular area, the whole place is just going to turn dark.
wow,
Everywhere is just going to turn dark. And people started like killing these animals, like feeding on them, eating them. So when they fly, from that kind of habit, the population started decreasing, and so they started decreasing until it get to just one of the species left.
wow,
So the species that was the name of that particular one that was left is called Mata. So
mhm,
this species died, and it is currently being preserved in a zoo in Brazil called the Cincinnati Zoo. I've never been there, and if I ever have the chance to be there, that will be the first thing I'm going to confirm to be sure if this is not just a story.
right,
It's more of a, yeah. So, but that really got me interested in nature, got me interested in biodiversity, and I saw how like human actions can cause a lot of harmful effect even on the earth and even to ourselves. So from there I wanted to be one of those people that preserve the nature. I wanted to be some of those people that, with my knowledge about biometries,
mhm,
get some data about the environment and come up with some kind of inferences, some kind of information that could be useful in managing Earth and its resources. So that is just like the background, and that was where I started to have like some interest in the field of forestry. And forestry, like if I know you're still gonna ask me this kind of question, but maybe I should just say this, the way forestry is being practiced where I come from is a bit different from what is obtainable here. So when I started this program, the professor I was working with is the biometrician and the faculty in the department, and also the GIS expert. So he takes the course on forest biometrics, and most times I TA'd the course and also the course again on GIS using like GIS Pro and some other kind of things. So one thing I realized is that because one of the reasons why I didn't really have that much interest at the beginning was because it was more of theory. Yeah, we used to go to the field, but it wasn't for some kind of productive activity. When I mean productive activity, like we going carrying out some research, like here, when you go to the field, you take measurements. The professor himself gives you an example. He's on the field telling you how to do point sampling, how to use the gauge, how to use different kind of equipment, and he's there telling you how to measure the height, telling you what the height is going to do, a measure of the site productivity, telling you how you can, a lot of things
Right.
that we learn on the field.
Hmm.
So, but most of these things are something that is not, we don't do. So we just go, we do most of the thing in the and theory. Sometimes, like there was a time we were learning some things on how to measure height, and we're using the trigonometric approach. Everything was just in the class,
Hmm.
theoretical. So sometimes it to tell you how deep those theory was. Sometimes we even have to just everything is just like a draw pictorial, like on the board, not even on the computer, not even. So but that is one thing that if those things had been in existence at that time, maybe by now I might have been like someone who loves, but right now I'm really enjoying, yeah, this field, meeting with great people like you and other
Yeah.
people who are willing to like help young people grow. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. And so you took your course, your junior level course in forest biometrics and informatics or something, and you decided like, hey, this is really cool. Is that where you started learning R in that course, or
Yeah.
how did? Yeah.
So I started learning R. So during my bachelor's program, when I did the forest biometric course, that
Mm.
was I didn't know anything about R during
Yeah.
my bachelor's program. So in fact, I didn't even know anything about any software. It was only Excel. And
Gotcha.
my knowledge on Excel at that time too wasn't that strong.
Right.
So the problem at that time was in the institution where I did my bachelor's program, we don't have a biometrician. So it's
Mm.
not something that is common,
Yeah.
like in Africa, in Nigeria, to say, oh, that there is a biometrician somewhere.
Mm.
As it is in this place, so there is a biometrician. And when you get to meet the biometrician, you know exactly that this is a biometrician. So more like the person who was teaching us at that time, who happens to be my undergraduate advisor, was just someone who have a knowledge on statistics.
Mm.
So it was just taking like the statistics, the T distribution, the T test, and some other things like that. ANOVA, chi-square test, and these are some of the things. But the way he thought it was interesting, but not in an applied manner. In
Yeah.
an applied manner, bringing some applied examples from forestry, and then giving us an impression that, oh, we need to be on the field right now to get some data. That was
Mm.
not the way it was taught. So, and even when I was doing my undergraduate research, it's funny that I couldn't even use SPSS. So I started
Mm.
learning at that point, and I met with some good friends who uh, just concluded his PhD at Mississippi State University. So we worked together, and I learned some things from him. So it was until I went for my master's degree that was when I started to learn R. So there is this course I did then, resource inventory analysis. So
Mhm.
in that course on resource inventory analysis and applied regression, that was where I started to learn about R. I started to do some few things about R. So personally, when I'm interested in something, as much as I have the interest, then there is this self motivation. I have to just go the extra mile. So if the lecturer is saying A, so for me, I would have gone to read A, B, C to Z. I would have
Mm.
gone do an extra thing. So the next class, when he's talking, I already know virtually what he's saying because I have a very strong interest in learning it at that time.
Yeah. And it's that drive, that self drive that pushes you to get a PhD. I know not everybody that goes for a PhD has it, but you usually find, I think, for the most part, that people have that self drive. I mean, and you see that even into, the other part of my podcast, interviewing retired biometricians. They're still working. They've been retired for 15, 20 years, and they're still fitting models, or they have their consulting business on the side. It's that self drive that never stops.
Hmm.
That's what's important in our field, because that's what's going to push you to be, really great at what you do.
Hmm.
It's why you are such a, that you've achieved all that you've achieved so far, is because of that self drive. So that's really interesting. And I love seeing that amongst people, because you see it's almost a light in the eyes, like, yes, I'm ready. Let's go. What's next? And that's really going to help you going forward.
Hmm.
So, uh, super interesting background, going from wanting to do engineering to,
Yeah.
oh, hey, there's this forestry and wildlife thing, to, oh, there's this biometrics class. I'm going to, keep following this because I'm really good at it. And
Yeah.
then you decided to go to get a master's. And your master's, what was your master's topic on?
So my master's topic was just on looking at the correlation between like uh, trees, the impact of trees in mitigating like greenhouse effect, greenhouse gases effect in Lagos metropolis. So that was just what I was doing. Yeah. So
Yeah.
using NDVI, seeing or using land surface temperature data to see when we have more trees, does it have any effect on the temperature in that particular metropolitan? So that was basically what the master's thesis was all about.
Yeah, so you were able to get some geospatial data sets, and to use your skills that you were developing in R and ArcGIS, and to be able to analyze the data set and come up with a good master's project.
Yeah, so at that time, so the only data set I could actually have access to is this US GS. There is this USGS website we usually go. So we have access to some Landsat data. So
Mhm.
this Landsat data were the data set I used in that project. And I didn't really use much of R. I didn't use much of R. So, but for me, what I do, anything that has to do with like I didn't use R for the geospatial aspect. So I use ArcMap. Unlike now, if I'm gonna do some things, I prefer to just do what I have to do on R instead of
Right.
switching from R, moving to ArcGIS Pro, and then bringing out the data, bringing it back to R, doing the statistical aspect of it. So, this moment, I have like some expertise in using some kind of geospatial, doing some geospatial work with us. So, but at that time, I was using ArcMap data set from USGS, and then whatever kind of analysis I want to do, I take it to R or I use Excel
Mm.
sometimes. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's the geospatial capabilities in R have just, in the past decade, have just exploded. I know everyone was using Python, and especially with QGIS now, they're integrating Python and QGIS, and everybody loves that. But what you can do in R now, especially with uh, the LiDAR packages and things like that, is to make your
Mhm.
remote sensing so much more accessible.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
exactly what you said, people don't now have to have 3 or 4 different software in their toolkits. They can
Exactly.
have one and do everything there.
Yeah.
I mean, we can download data directly from from the web. Like, it's becoming so amazing. Um, but it's also taken a little bit of the versatility away from people, because now you can just learn one software and you don't have to know a bunch of other ones.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
that's, yeah. But uh, if you've used one, GIS software, I think you pretty much can use them all. It's a small learning curve once you've got it figured out, right?
Exactly.
But that's exciting. Okay, and so what made you decide to go then from Nigeria to Italy, which of course is a huge move for you?
Yeah.
Um,
So, for me, immediately after I completed my master's degree at the University of Ibadan, So one thing that was on my mind was just I need an international exposure. So even while I was in Nigeria, I realized most of the kind of working relationship I have are with people outside the country.
Mhm.
So the first experience I had was with this program they call it MEDFOR, Mediterranean Forestry. So I applied it an Erasmus Modus program. So I applied for this scholarship, and fortunately, I was listed among those that were qualified for the scholarship. And so what that implies is that I would have to travel from Nigeria and I would have to go for my master's in Europe in at least three universities.
Mhm.
So I could have the first year in the university, go for the second year in another university, and in all these universities, I get like a certificate. So, but there was this pandemic that came in.
Yeah.
So the pandemic put a lot of things to hold, and that particular year I couldn't travel. So,
Mhm.
but for me to just make uh to be productive during the pandemic, then I sat down and I've gotten a lot of invitations before the pandemic by different universities in Nigeria
Mhm.
to come to their campuses to train the students and even the faculties on how to use R.
Mhm.
So what I used to do then is, so most times if I'm going to train like professors, doctors, most of them may not really want to pay attention because there is this age of ego, and they may be saying, oh, this guy, he just have master's degree, how can he be teaching? So most times when I'm going for such seminars or trainings, I do go along with a doctor, so
Mhm.
he can handle whatever kind of seminar that has to do with those that are professors and all those things. And sometimes when he has done that, maybe the second day, then I can go in when they already believe that this guy can do it. So this was what I was doing. And then when I realized that I have a lot of experience, and the same thing, like you said, one of the things that will keep people going is the drive. So that drive pushed me till I developed an idea of writing a book on R with examples, applied examples that could be useful for undergraduate students. So then I looked around, there was nothing of such from an African author in Nigeria. So I'm like, oh, this is gonna be a good thing for me to do. So I spent a lot of months during the pandemic. I was at home putting up those things together, writing, doing all sort of things, putting up my codes and everything, just arranging everything. So I was able to make it. So I published the book, and I sold a lot of the copies of the books. And the first company that encouraged me was the company of my mentor. So there is this popular organization in Nigeria, well known all across Africa. They call them Data Science Nigeria, DSN. So it's now a network. So the founder of that organization were the one who bought the first 60 copies of the books
Oh, wow.
and kept it in their library for young students to read. And I was really happy that, oh wow, I could do this for myself. And I never knew the magnitude of what I've done until the same drive keeps pushing me that, okay, you just have to apply for some opportunities and find yourself fulfilling this dream of you having an international exposure. So
Mhm.
then I then sent a cold email to some professors in some schools that are biometrics oriented, and then I sent to Virginia Tech. So at that time, I used to read the book by Buckett, the late Professor Buckett, and so I'm like, I need to be in this university. So then I wrote an email, and there is this professor there, Patrick Corey Green. I've never seen him once until the last NEMO meeting. So
Mhm.
I wrote an email to him. This was far back as 2018, 2018. So I wrote this email to him, and it was like, he invited me for an interview just like this.
Mhm.
So after the interview, I said, oh, I love what you are doing. I love what you do. I love everything. So, but for me, I was wondering, why has he chosen to call me
Mhm.
amidst every other people who had submitted? their profiles, their CVs, their journal articles, and everything to him. So I was curious. So I wasn't carried away by some of the things he said about me. So at the end of the meeting, I asked him a question. I said, Corey, it- don't be offended. I just want to ask a question. So why did you choose to invite me?
Mm.
I just want to be sure. I just want to have your response to also build my confidence to know
Mhm.
if I'm doing what I'm doing, if I'm really going in the right direction. So he told me, he said he saw the book I published. He said he invited me because of that.
Mm.
That if I could take my time to do that, that shows I could cope in any kind of graduate program. So that really was an encouragement to me. But eventually, I didn't go for that program. I didn't go to Virginia Tech that year,
Mm.
and but we kept relating. Myself and Corey, we
Mhm.
kept relating, and it wasn't. In fact, before I knew that it was Corey, he knew me.
Yeah.
He knew that that's that guy. That's that guy.
Yeah.
2018.
Yeah.
Before I knew it was Corey, was when I saw VT, and I saw when Aaron introduced. Okay, the next presenter is Corey talking
Mhm.
about this. I said, oh, is this the guy? I was
Mhm.
thinking, is this one? But I'm like, oh, this is very young person. So,
Right.
but then when I couldn't go, so then I the next year after the pandemic, then I was invited by a university, and then I went to Italy.
Mm.
So when I went to Italy, I already have a master's degree. So I was going again for another master's degree. So
Mhm.
for me, I'm like, it doesn't make sense. What do I want to do with two master's degree? I just need to go straight for a PhD. So when I did the master's degree, I then after doing the master's degree, so I have a professor who taught me geospatial science in that university.
Mm.
So then there was this call in Italia on LinkedIn. The call was for a postdoc on a project carbon farming certification system that the university was involved in with the European Union.
Mm.
So for me, I understand a bit of Italian, but not that much. So for me, who doesn't really have an understanding of Italian, I just saw that as an application. I thought it was an application for a doctorate degree. So I
Mhm.
just applied on LinkedIn. It was an easy application. I just applied. And the professor saw the application and she sent me a message on LinkedIn. Oh, Joshua, this is strictly for those who have their doctoral degree. Besides, you don't even have a master's degree yet.
Mhm.
So I saw that message and I was like, no, what do you mean? So I walked to our office and I'm like, probably you are missing something here. I have a master's degree from Nigeria. And this is what my master's degree is into geospatial, remote sensing, forest biometrics. And she was like, she never knew. And she's like,
Mhm.
okay, this she's gonna do that. Though this is meant for those who have doctorate degree and all those things, but I can apply. So I
Mhm.
joined the interview section. They interviewed me, they did everything. They interviewed other applicants. But funny enough, when I went for the interview, I was fully prepared. I read a lot about database. They told us about what the project is going to look like. So I read a lot about database management. I read a lot about like GIS, everything. But when I got to the interview, I never knew they already checked my profile on LinkedIn and they were asking me questions about my organization. So
Mhm.
what the shit I didn't know. I didn't know they were going to ask me question about, oh, what is this about this? What is this about this shit? And then I started to tell them about what I do, uh,
Mhm.
this, and the interview was just very short. And somehow the professor said, "We would love to work with you."
Mhm.
That was how I became. How would I call it now? I was acting as a postdoc
Yeah.
doctoral. So I'm like, no, I really need to go get my PhD. So I could still be in Italy, but I
Mhm.
like no. I think it's high time I go for my PhD.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's high time I go for my PhD. So probably when I'm done with the PhD, I could then position myself for some greater opportunities or something. So that was why I chose to leave Italy. Though the professor, very kind, very good, was like, "You could do your PhD here in Italy." I'm like, "No, if I do my PhD here in Italy, you." a professor in ecological studies, fire management, but that's not where my interest lies. My interest lies in biometrics.
Right.
I'm not, yeah, I really want to be with someone who I'm going to grow under. I'm going to learn a lot under. I'm going to publish some papers with. I'm going to, gain a lot of confidence in that field. And I'm glad I made that decision.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm glad I made that decision to be
Well,
in the US.
yeah. And so that brings you to SUNY. You've been at SUNY since 2023. And so what's that process like going from, you're in Italy, you decide you want to go somewhere else for a PhD and then landing the position in SUNY? How did that happen?
Also, so when I was in Italy, and I was still working as a research fellow in
Mhm.
the University of Tushia, and so I just decided within myself that I was going to quit that job and proceed for my PhD in the UX.
Mhm.
So I left the job when it was like 3 months for me to travel to the UX. So, but before I even got that opportunity, so this was what I was doing. So, from the moment when I got into Italy, from the moment I got into Italy, I started sending cold emails to professors that are biometricians in the US. I would love to work with you if you have any kind of opportunity. This is who I am. I have my background in this. I have this. I have that. And a lot of them were giving me response. And some of them I met for the first time at the NEMO conference.
Mhm.
I remember maybe I've forgotten his name. Zhao Deng Zai is from Georgia.
Yeah, they high.
They high. So we've met, we've been talking. In fact, he knew me. In fact,
Mhm.
when we were at the NEMO conference, it was like, he just got married recently because he was following me on LinkedIn. He was following everything I was posting, everything. So I'm like, wow. So then I was writing to a lot of these professors. So after my master's degree, I wrote and I chose one of the schools that invited me for an interview
Mhm.
in Oregon by a very good mentor of mine, Professor Timesjin in Miriam. So, and again, one here in Sunny ESF. So, what happened was I was still on that job, that research fellowship, and I just have like I have like 6 months to complete that job when I got this admission to Sunny. So what I have to do was I don't want to leave the job because the whole job was built around me, the geospatial aspect.
Mhm.
So what I did was I had to call a meeting between the professor where I was working and the professors here in the US. And I explained the situation to them. I may not be able to resume to the US this particular period because of what I have here. Because the implication if I abscond away from Italy is going to cast a wrong impression on other African students who will be coming to that school.
Mhm. Yeah.
So I don't want to use my own to affect the opportunities that any other young people will have. What I'm doing, anything I'm doing is to create a very good legacy, a very good uh, impression about Africans. So I don't want to soil integrity or image. So I said I'm not going to go. I'm going to stay till the end of the research, till
Mhm.
the end of that particular program. So I knew that that decision was for me a risky one. It is either I lose the PhD position in Sony or I just continue with that job. So I already made up my mind that this is the best thing to do.
Mhm.
So fortunately for me, the professors here in Sony, they were really surprised that what kind of person is this. So for that reason, they told me they were going to keep that position for me till I complete that program, that research fellowship. So they kept the program for me. So I was meant to start the PhD in 2022.
Mhm.
So they kept pushing it. So sometimes I would tell them, they would ask me during the spring semester, "Are you ready to come?" I said, "No, hold on." Again, fall, they transfer it again. Fall, "Are you ready to come?" I said, "Oh, no, hold on." Till I started the program fall 2023. So it was a kind of smooth process. It was a smooth process. So it was just more like an interview. It started via an email, cold email,
Mhm.
and they're like, okay, I love what you're doing. can you meet with me via Zoom? Can you choose a date that is convenient for you? So I pick a date from the list of days they have, and then we start to talk just like this. And if they are interested, they are going to say, okay, you can go ahead and submit your application. So that was exactly what happened to me.
Yeah. That's exciting. And so now you're there. And I watched some of your presentation, but tell me, what is it you're working on now for your dissertation?
So I've been involved in a lot of research since I joined Sony. So one of the research was just the research where for the first time I was able to fulfill like my dream of working with drones, working with some perspective data. So it was research on willow biomass. So I did that research. That was the first research I was enrolled in, and the other one was the one I did on the one I came to present at the NIMO conference. So it was more on diameter distributions, and I was happy about the contributions you gave. So the funny thing was when I went back again to play, because I have a friend who was recording that section. When I went back to play the question you asked me, it happens to be something I know I've heard about, but probably because of the way you spoke, I couldn't really grab, and tension facing such a very large crowd of experts biometricians. So
Uh,
because I remember there is a book by Metalori. There is a guy called Metalori, one from in one European biometrician. So he has a book on biometrics for environmental data.
okay.
Yeah. So in that book, there is something on CDF regression. So he spoke on CDF regression, finite mixture, talks about like diameter distribution, but all he was doing in that place was just using two parameter Weibull.
Hmm.
So for me, I just wanted to like, okay, learn more. So I said, let me use three parameter Weibull.
Hmm.
So I was just doing that, and I didn't even carry my advisor along when I was doing that. So I was just playing. For me, what I'm doing with anything I'm doing is just to always find myself better than who I used to be before. Not competing or trying to like be better than this person. No, I just want to be better for myself and be able to like be useful to my
Yeah.
society. So I was learning whatever things I know I don't know, I learn. I watch a lot of tutorials from um this person, Matt Ruzel. So I follow Matt Ruzel and we are friends. He's always eager to help me. He's always going to tell me, Joshua, in case you need anything, I'm here. Just let me know. I'm like,
Yeah.
wow, thank you. So I used to learn a lot of things from him. So then I decided to just work on that thing, diameter distribution. I have like someone again who also gave me like a helping hand. I met him when I was doing my master's in UI in the University of Ibadan. So he also uses R.
Yeah.
And he's also this kind of person that's highly motivated. So he introduced me to R. We're working together. So when I was in the US, he told me he's also in the US again doing his postdoc. I'm like, oh, that's good. So we started to do some things together. He has some codes. We are working. So I'm learning all this. So again, the understanding of that particular concept. So then I sent an email to my advisor. I'm working on this thing. I want to publish it. Can you just bring in your input? And he was really impressed that, oh, you're doing this. And so he sponsored me to the conference.
Hmm.
And wow,
Yeah.
thank you very much. So in fact, what he did was we should have used like, uh, uh, we should have traveled via the plane using the plane, but we just wanted to have like fun. So we used the university van. He drove it like 5 hours. An elderly person like you, so he's
Yeah.
such a loving person. So we were there. He was happy seeing me present. When we got back, he was like, "No, you have to go ahead and do your candidacy. You're a good guy." So,
Yeah.
so at that point, that was one of that research. And for me, the research I'm doing at the level of my PhD. So it also, having an understanding of on how climate change have been impacting the overstory and the understory species of communities of species in the US, particularly in the Northeast. So this is exactly what I'm doing. So I just drafted the proposal in conjunction with my advisor not long ago, and so it's still in the proposal phase, and hopefully this semester, after these exams, then
Mhm.
I can start working fully in
Mhm.
the research. But right now, my attention is on the exams. Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's I was just going to say that when you were talking earlier about, not wanting to leave a bad impression about Nigerian students, so you didn't want to leave early. I mean, that having that mentality and thinking about your compatriots back home and them who maybe want to come and study, in Europe or in the US, like most grad students are just trying to survive the week. They're not thinking this kind of things, and having that mentality is, I've got to tell you, it's very impressive that you're
Thank
not just thinking about yourself. And I think that makes you a very special person, and I'm
Oh,
really excited. I'm
thank you.
excited to see what you're doing, and I'm excited to see what you're gonna do because you're
Thank
obviously
you.
making an impact.
Mm,
And I want to move in because you have TAGNG, which is your kind of foundation that you've started, and the presentation that you gave at the end of the Nemo Somens meeting, I'm very happy that you did because I was quite unaware of what you were doing. And I think that is, again, it's so impressive and amazing that you have this side project of yours that you're doing that is just from the heart. And
mm.
so could you please tell everybody what it is what is Tag and G and what you're doing there?
Okay, so the TAGNG is, let me just say, it's just an acronym of the word the Achievers Gathering. So it's a gathering of like minds from all walks of life that are interested in helping young people in Africa. So it started, it's a dream that started when I was in my undergraduate program in the University of Agriculture, Belkota. So we started more like a movement to help young people live a purposeful life. Because one thing I've seen that has become a trend at that time is young people just want to enjoy their life. And so they go to the university and they didn't really make the most of that opportunity. So they graduate and they now realize that if I had known, I would have done better when I was in my undergraduate program. If I had known, I would have been more serious. Maybe after graduating, they couldn't get a job or they graduate with a very poor grade. And now the grade factor is haunting them. So these are things that we realized, and then we started a movement. We organize a lot of leadership program telling people about the importance of living a purposeful life. So from there, it graduated from, okay, now we now have to bid for, like, apply for some funding to like help some indigent students, help some people who are going through some kind of challenging period, probably students who couldn't pay their school fees. So we do go to, as far as we do go to like some secondary schools, primary schools where we have young people, very young people, and we try to like encourage them about like believing in themselves and believing in whatever kind of dream they have, irrespective of their background. So when I moved into Italy, the organization keeps on moving on. But one thing that I have at the back of my mind is, you see, for me, like I said in the course of this presentation, is that I'm not looking at becoming competing with any human on it. I just want to be better for myself. I just want to be a good father for my children. I want to be a good person to my community. I want to be a good member, maybe in Nemo or whatever kind of thing. Responsible. I just want to live a responsible life and be impactful. So what I have at the back of my mind was when I was in Nigeria, like in fact, I didn't even have a job. There was no job at that time after my master's degree. So for me, the only job that were present was this kind of job that you have to work all day and you get a peanut, you get a little amount of money. So for me, I decided not to go for such a job. So what I did was just to be in the develop myself. I do help some students outside the country with some assignments, so I make some money from that. But I decided to just invest in myself before I go. And then I was looking for these opportunities outside. So, but something that struck me was when I moved to Italy, the first, the job I took, the first money I made was in the currency in my country. It was more than close to more than a million, more than a million naira. It was huge. And that salary, if I were to be in Nigeria, no one would pay me that money. No one. So within me and with a heart of gratitude, I'm like, No, I should be grateful. So I looked at them resources. I'm like, what do I do with these resources? How do I use these resources to affect other people coming behind me? So I shared this same story with my professor at that time, and I was so glad to see the way it was received. The university told me they have like some computers because I told them the big vision is to have like an institute where we're going to have like people learning, like a lot of impactful thing going on, people coming, learning, going to the world, learning, going to the world, learning, those having scholarship are having scholarship, those getting jobs. So that was the vision. So they were like, anytime I'm ready, that there is a scholar, there is a kind of computers I could just, there were a lot of computers I could just take. I'm like, wow, and I could move them back to Africa. So for me, I looked at it, I'm like, these resources, I need to do something to other young people too who wish to have this kind of opportunity but they couldn't have it. So that was, then I invested a part of it into the organization. So we do give out like some kind of funding to some people, like young students who are motivated, who wants to also travel abroad via scholarship but do not have the documents. The document could be like the international passport, so they may not have the international passport. It's expensive to do that. So, but we fund it. We give them some money, and we have a lot of feedbacks. We have a lot of testimonies of people who, by virtue of our programs, gain some knowledge that they were able to use in some kind of graduate application, and now they're in the US, some are in Europe. So this is the reason behind what we do at the Achievers Graduate. And so we took it a step further by saying, okay, we now want to be domain specific. So we want to have like, we want to measure our impact by virtue of some kind of domain. So we have experts, some of us, like I'm a biometrician. I know some people in biometricians. I have someone in the network who is from Portugal, who is, he's not a black person, so but he saw it on LinkedIn, so he loved what we were doing, and he chose to be part of the board. And so he's a geologist. So he also organized like a mentorship program for geologists, but African people. A lot of things he brought experts from Portugal, different people across the world. So we started this mentorship program like for people who are interested in becoming biometrician, but are in Nigeria that doesn't even know how to use any software, doesn't even know how to do any kind of modeling. So we started that. So the first series we had, we brought Yang, we brought there is this Bianca S. Kelsin from University of British Columbia, and we brought a lot of people. We brought Mark Ruzel, we brought this person from Mississippi, Pode, Krishna Pode. So a lot of people we brought, and this is what we do like on a yearly basis, bringing people, bringing experts. Sometimes it may not even be about writing codes. It could just be for them to just share their story to us like this, that, oh yeah, this is how I got myself in biometrics. This is exactly what biometrics is all about. So we could hear directly from an expert, and that could put us in the right perspective, and that could help us in sieving out what is not and what it is. So that is exactly what this organization is all about. And I was also happy that my advisor here is also in support. And the last time we were at the NEMO conference, I told him, say, go ahead and do it, go ahead and do it. He encouraged me. And I just told Aaron, and Aaron was like, because I didn't knew that there was going to be an opportunity, an avenue for me to do that. Until when I heard when Aaron, my advisor, was saying that, I'm like, okay, let me give it a try. I went to Aaron and he was like, oh, come on, you have like 5 minutes, to it's even too much. Yeah, so that is just basically what we do in the organization.
Yeah, well, that's again very impressive, very exciting work, and again, just to see you do that and do it from the heart. It's not something you have to do, but it's something that you want to do to give back. And um, I wish more people were like that, because if we all decided to give back as much as you are, then how much better would our world be?
Yeah,
So
exactly.
thank you. I mean, and I'm not even the benefit of that, but just having you in our community is just it's really a blessing. It's really a treat. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
And I want to tell you, thank you so much for coming on the podcast today
Thank
and just talking about yourself and your organization. If people wanted to help out with TAGNG, how could they do that? What are the outlets for helping you with this foundation?
Okay, so one of that's a very good question because I know the last time we met at the NEMO conference, a lot of people showed interest, but I don't know. I've sent an email and I haven't gotten a response. I don't know, maybe the emails were not right. So, but I'm gonna check again through the general email list sent from Aaron and then resend those emails. So, one best way would be through LinkedIn. So, the organization have a LinkedIn face. TAGNG. When you just search for TAGNG, we have the company account, and we also have like the normal individual account, but it's still in the name TAGNG. So we have a website, tagng.org. So on the website, you could have like our email info at tagng. So you could write us an email if you're interested in partnering with us, or you could see any of us, any of the leadership team. It could be myself, it could be Sanchez, it could be Professor uh, Bahal from Egypt, or it could be Michael from Nigeria. So any one of us, you could reach out to us and say, yeah, you're this, you want to lend a support to TAGNG. Besides, one other thing we usually do is, so we marked out some experts in a particular field, and so we write them an email. So in case probably someone listening to this podcast after this recording is gonna say, okay, in case you see anything from TAGNG, don't be scared. You
Yeah.
know, so it's just for it's a good cause just to help young people in Africa and to also transform our society and our world.
Yeah, and whenever I post this on LinkedIn, I will put the links to your LinkedIn page and
Okay.
your website.
Yeah.
But specifically, that's how they can contact you and learn more about your organization. But how can they help? Is it, you talked earlier about getting computers? Is it, will the gifts of like old computers help, or old devices, cell phones, whatever, is that kind of thing help? Or do you also need like, oh, if people wanted to, provide a lecture or something on their specific topic, what are those kind of things that would help your organization?
So basically, that question is just gonna be in line with what the vision we have for the year. Because per time we usually have like some vision, we have like some specific vision, short-term vision, and the long-term vision. So at the moment, the vision is still going to be around teaching, around impacting, around seminars, like just some fundamental things about forest biometrics or whatever kind of concept that people believe is going to be useful for people growing. It could even be stuffs on leadership. It could be stuffs on time management. It could be stuffs on money management, resource management. It could be anything that is just going to be relevant to young people. Sometimes people really want to impact, but they're looking for that kind of platform. So if you're looking for that kind of platform, tagging is that kind of platform. So if you want to be a part, if you want to do any kind of thing, like I said, you could send an email, or you could, if you're not getting response, you're definitely going to get a response from the LinkedIn, the official LinkedIn of the organization. But if you're friends, if you we are friends on LinkedIn, you can also send me a message, and then we could make it happen. So talking about like computers, these ones are just like the long term vision. What we are trying to do is just to get ourselves known. We are trying to like build this kind of very strong public image that people all across the US, people outside Nigeria can get to know what we do, and with that, that would be easy for us to say. Because one thing, one thing we're trying to do is, I told this to my advisor, we're trying to like document, like we're trying to like have like a textbook. In that textbook, we're going to document like procedures, like some kind of procedures to doing 3-point sampling, some procedure to doing line intercepts sampling, variable, different kind of thing. We're coming up with that kind of thing, like a manual things, or buying like equipment. And so we may go to anywhere in Africa and have like just 1 week boot camp. So the boot camp is just going to be going into African forest. Probably we could have a researcher who maybe have a research in Africa, and so you could use that as an avenue to have like more young people who are going to volunteer to be part of those who is going to join maybe in the data collection if there is need for any kind of data collection. So this is what we are looking forward to doing in the future. But at
Mhm.
first, we want to have like a good public image, want to get to that level where most people know exactly, especially those in the forest biometrics world, knows exactly when they hear tag, they know, oh, it's a noble source.
Hmm.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. Well, again, thank you so much for coming on the podcast today.
You're welcome.
We're going to end this now. Hang on a second, and we'll have another conversation after we stop recording. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Well, thank you everybody for listening. The links to TAGNG and to Joshua's LinkedIn page will be on the website. So we're excited for everything that you're doing, Joshua. And again, you. Okay.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.